Glad to have you back, and if you're just joining us, you're watching Nigeria Decides on Plus TV Africa. This is our election studio, and it is day 35. Now, we've been talking about big parties and small parties in Nigeria, depending on structure, funding, and a whole lot more. And before we went on that short break, we were talking about a coalition of smaller parties to have a greater force and impact in the polity, in the electorate, and convince enough to be able to wield the kind of authority that bigger parties have. What's your take on having coalitions in Nigeria, especially making an impact? Because at the end of the day, Nigeria has to develop.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I would like to believe that, yes, realistically, that is one of the most that's one of the most viable options for a lot of these parties, the younger parties or the smaller parties. You know, I would think, yes, usually selfish interest is what usually consists to the end of this kind of coalitions. And the objective, you understand? Like I'm very big on ideology or semblance of ideology. Like, for instance, my party refused to join the CUPP because it felt that the CUPP had a sinister objective, you understand? So I want to believe that if my party, YPP, had met other parties that were envisaged a superior ideology or had a goal that would have benefited Nigerians, they may have.
Barrister Tosin, we've seen situations where the smaller parties have quickly run up to join either the ruling APC or the PDP. I don't want to mention names, but do you think it's just second nature for the moment reality strikes you? Oh, we don't think we can make so much of an impression. Let's just really rally round. Do you think that's just second nature and expected from political parties?
It's expected because politicians, to a large extent, are very great schemers. There are certain of those small new parties, that were actually engineered by some bigwigs, all right? So it's expected. But what I want to say, point out, is that even in a coalition, we have to understand the difference between a coalition and in a merger. In a merger, like what culminated into the APC, it means the loss of the identity, legal identity of the parties that made it up, which would have been fine for people like us who are saying 91 is too much, so that we can clear the road a little bit and we have less parties. Now, in a coalition, the parties that make up a coalition retain their separate identities. So we are still talking about.
Well, we actually have a situation like that already. Many parties coming together. We had the one with the PDP.
The CUPP thing you mentioned.
Yes, and then you have.
But they retain their individual identities.
Yes, but I don't think that's working so well.
Everybody's pulling out.
Ego will be there. They will all pull out.
I kind of like the way you also correct yourself when you say small to young.
You just have to, because for me, it's an opinion.
All right, so much to talk about the parties and, you know, big and small parties. But let's move away a little from that. Now, today, the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry organized a private sector interactive forum with two governorship aspirants for the Lagos gubernatorial seat, Jimmy Agbaje of the People's Democratic Party and Babajide Sanwo-Olu of the All Progressive Congress. Now, they both took to the stage as they shared their various intentions for the state, which would stir up economic growth and further create a better standard of living for residents in Lagos State. Let's take a look at that, and we'll be right back.
The governorship aspirants for Lagos State, Babatunde Sanwo-Olu of the All Progressive Party and Jimmy Agbaje of the People's Democratic Party, were invited by the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry to speak on their plans for Lagos economic growth if elected as governor. They spoke on the multiple taxation system and their solutions.
One thing you are going to do is to address the issue of ease of business, because it's part of the ease of doing business that makes you decide that regulation is a means of extracting money from the private sector. And I think it's a very wrong paradigm where government believes that it will use its regulatory powers to draw money out of the private sector. It is not looking at the private sector as a partner. We're saying that the private sector is a partner, and therefore you're going to have to streamline those taxes because it's just not working. And therefore, it's important that when we streamline those taxes, we look at government and the private sector as partner in this matter.
It is engagement we need to have. I'm aware, for example, the very, very difficult one, which is the land use charge. right? It has 3 taxes together in one. We can transparently sit together and work with all of your professionals, right? In the land use charge, you have the ground rents, you have the tenement rate, and you have the improvement charge. All was because they wanted to bundle it together and reduce the ease at which you do it. I take the point that we can communicate a lot better. I take the point that we can actually engage ourselves a lot deeper before we came up or before government comes up with some of those regulations. And that's what I'm about.
They also spoke on the power sector and what they're bringing to the table.
And I'll tell you one of our bold steps is to be able to take Lagos out of the grid. I say with all sense of responsibility that I will do everything to take Lagos out of the national grid. They are heavy with me on this. If we do that, I can put 1,000 megahertz within 6 months on the waterways there. And if I plug another 1,000 here, not only will we have 24/7 power, all of the private businesses, which all of the honorable members here, they will need to begin to shut down their generators very quickly. Because it is, I've done the research, with a 2,000 persistent supply into Lagos, everybody will have power.
And I will give you 2 words that may be strange to some. It's called embedded power. Embedded power is saying that you can generate electricity locally for your own use without it going to the national grid. Government will facilitate, not participate, will facilitate generation, will encourage the private sector to generate electricity that will be put for Lagos.
They also spoke on the strategy to deepen public-private partnership.
We're going to have what you call the storage gas vessel. There will be a storage gas vessel, basically just like we run our homes, where you have a gas cylinder. And that gas will be connected to the grid, so that when there's a shortfall in gas supply from the national grid, that takes over automatically. You have in Lagos where companies, telcos will tell you that they're finding it difficult to get right of way from Lagos State government, because Lagos State government uses its Ibile Holdings and some other crony companies to determine who gets right of way. And so you are charged a figure that is so ridiculous that does not allow them to have right of way to improve interconnectivity.
The strongest point to take away from PPP is your legal regulatory framework, and have people who understand commercial transactions. The moment you do it, what people want is that we will ensure that beyond your tenure as a governor or whatever it is, like that the contracts or the agreements that we hold stay beyond your own regime.
Jimmy Agbaje of the People's Democratic Party also spoke exclusively to Plus TV Africa on the importance of voting in the upcoming election.
Well, I think my message for Lagosians is that elections are around the corner. We've got elections on the 16th of February. We've got elections on the 2nd of March. That it is time for Lagosians to come out in large numbers to make their voices heard by coming out to vote on election days. That is my message. We cannot allow people to determine our future. We must be part of the process. And so they should come out in large numbers to vote.
Now, gentlemen, we just watched that clip where the 2 governors, well, Babajide Sanwo-Olu of the governorship candidates, that's Babajide Sanwo-Olu of the APC, reeling out his plan of action. He's a first-time participant this time around in the game of politics in Lagos State. And then we have someone whose name has really been coming up at different governorship elections. That's Jimmy Agbaje. Now, in your assessment of the 2 individuals, what do you make of their plans of action? We look at multiple taxation, their reactions on that, states internally generated revenue. Power comes into question as well. The right of way, legal regulatory framework, and then public-private partnership. Having a vision beyond just the 4 years. What do you think of the plans that have been reeled out by both parties' candidates?
Well, looking at it, I dare say that they are both ambitious plans, and the taste of the pudding is in the eating. really can't say how achievable some of them are. It's easy for them to reel out figures here. But what I would dare say is that in the area of the economy, listening to what both of them said, it's clear that the PDP candidates, let me just quote him, the PDP candidate is interested in taking much of the responsibility of channeling the economy from government to power to the people and the PPPs. You understand? Which is good, because ideally, like he said, government should be facilitating. You understand? Most of these functions of government, these things that aid the economy.
The whole,
yeah, you should facilitate the economy, not actually be participating and directing trends. You understand? So I think that is something that Lagosians should look out for. That's something that Lagosians should be interested in.
So
and it's something that my party, yes, is also aligning with that.
I think you should also react to that.
Well, as somebody who's given to a lot of deliberate and careful study, the video you just watched might be an indicator, a pointer of sort, but thankfully, it's not enough for me to assess both of them, sincerely speaking. And thankfully, I have a platform in about 2 days' time. I think both of them, I have a VIP card to a governorship debate wherein I'll sit and assess them one-on-one.
Okay, we hope you will come back and tell us your thoughts then.
If I'm invited.
Of course,
for instance,
you're definitely coming back.
but for example, there is an issue which I made, central to my manifesto, and that is the issue of the 37 LCDs. I would have loved, of course, I promised them, that's the question I'm going to be asking them on that day, if I have the chance, that what are you doing to have these 37 LCDAs constitutionally recognized? But 2003, a Supreme Court judgment was given, and they said they are incorrect. That's why I have made it the cornerstone of my manifesto, that if elected on the platform of the Yes Party for Lagos Mainland Federal Constitution, I'll lobby and make it a motion within the first 28 days of commencement of legislative work. We need to begin to look at this. These are issues for me that will have direct bearing on the people, as well as multiple taxation, as well as land use issues, and so on and so forth.
But Barrister Tosin, another issue I say is that in all of the manifestos, plans of action, and all of those that I have seen so far, nothing really strikes me as a clear-cut vision. Everything seems, for a lack of a better word, everything still seems just shabby, just some sort of blur instead of a clear picture.
Maybe
do you feel that same way too?
No, I don't feel that way. Now, I heard both of them talking about multiple taxation. It's a very serious issue. So we should address it. So because on every issue of multiple taxation,
how do we address it? Because all of
the instances
are running for
this question, like I've always said, you don't still I'm still bringing this ideology.
How is what everyday
Nigerians? If parties were ideologically based,
do you have a governorship candidate?
We do not have.
Do you have a governorship candidate?
Yes, we do.
So let's go back to you and now ask. If your governor, you have a governorship candidate, do you think that he or she will be able to explicitly, like he's asking, state exactly what they intend to achieve for the people?
Because I think the everyday Nigerian, sorry, Barrister Tosin, the everyday Nigerian still thinks they are just saying they will. Now we want to know how. Exactly what are you going to do? Because governments at different levels have always come up with this cloud of secrecy. Tell us how. That's what you will get our votes for.
Let me be spot on. Now, I'm not standing for governorship office. In my case, I've told you, to even think about it at all is novel, because since 2003 that this judgment was given by the Supreme Court, we've had several tenures, and nobody has deemed it fit to revisit it. So the mere fact that I'm even thinking about it shows that, well, there's some degree of, give it to us without sounding immodest, there's some degree of ability to articulate for the people. I'm talking about since 2003, we've had elections in 2007, we've had elections in 2011, we've had in 2015.
Politicians are smart. They always look for a loophole to just say, oh, we found out that nobody has done this, so let's just use that as a
But that's the name of it. You have to look for something innovative. For God's sake.
Now, Barrister Tosin, you've not answered.
I have.
Do you think these parties are telling us how?
Let's even leave
I don't know about those parties, but I can speak for my party.
I said, for this, I'm not standing up for governorship office. I'm standing up for House of Reps. And what I'm talking about, in fact, was killed right in the same place I'm aspiring to be, at the National Assembly.
All right, let's also give some talk time to...
Yes. I know for free that the governorship candidate of the Young Progressive Party in Lagos State, Princess Adebisi Ogunsoya, is one that she has been in a couple of these parties, and she has seen, the way government runs. And I know for free that she's a supporter of a free economy in Lagos State. You understand? She believes in the PPP, that's the public-private partnership. She believes that empowering them and giving them the right framework, you understand, will engender an economy in Lagos that is free.
Again, we use the word right policies.
Yes.
Ensure a free economy.
Yes.
How? That's the question my colleague has been asking.
Yeah, that's why I latched on to what Mr. Jimmy Agbaje said earlier about government being a facilitator rather than a participant. You understand? If government opens up and says, okay, fine, we're giving you a legal regulatory framework which makes it attractive for you as an investor to come into an area or a business area, and you come in and say, okay, fine. And you say, okay, I'm coming in, and we decide, okay, I'm coming in here, but because I have 1, 2, 3 things in place, incentives like a tax holiday, for instance, for an investor, or I'm giving you a free registration of maybe businesses or subsidiaries, that would make me want to come in and invest my naira. You understand? So those are things that government should actually be putting forward as against coming with blanket, suggestions like they do. And I know for free that my party is committed to doing that.
Now, Barrister Tosin, another issue that's raised up its head at different conversations and discussions has been states now taking the bull by the horn and have the whole administrative process run properly by the states, funding, administration, everything has to be done by the states. No longer should we concentrate the whole power to the federal government or the powers above. Do you think states in Nigeria today have the capacity to be able to model up different regulations and frameworks and be able to deliver on what the average state resident wants to see, be it power, be it infrastructure, you name it?
Okay, maybe I'll have you break down this question, because what we started with...
Internally generated revenue at state level.
All right.
That's what I'm asking.
Okay. So what about it?
So what's your take on states really amassing, utilizing the resources and all of this, not giving the excuse that we are waiting for?
If you are talking resource control, the way it still is the way it is. Until an amendment is made to that effect, nothing can be done. But if you are talking about IGR, which is separate from mineral resources inherent in the states, IGR is the responsibility of the state chief executive, the governor in this case, to look for areas where they can tap in. There are some that have been holistically illegal, even in Lagos State, okay? But somehow we find that we're getting monies. I'm going to ask Okada riders. I'm more interested in the ordinary Nigerian. They will tell you that the union, the Agberos, surcharge them. Okay, and they tell you that's part of IGR to some extent, because these monies, according to these people, gets back to the government.
I actually think that the issue of economics is going to be maybe like a full-blown conversation, because we can't take it
we'll take a separate platform for that.
But we probably will have a more extensive conversation about the economy of this state and Nigeria generally, especially with the elections coming up. So before we round up this segment, I'll just ask the issue of continuance. Because I think I got when...
Continuance, okay.
Yes, when both of them were talking longevity. after you pass away, let's say, for instance, you didn't get, Ambode is definitely going, you didn't get the ticket of the APC to continue another 4-year term. Do you think that what we have now, these candidates that are contesting, will put in place mechanisms to ensure that projects that are started, even when they are no longer in office, we don't have a situation of abandoned projects afterwards? The issue of longevity, continuance, maintenance. What is its place in this election? I'll take that question to you first.
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, there's really no mechanism to which we can hold any office holder accountable for any promises that are made. You understand? Or to come in and continue projects of past governments. Like
that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Will they be able, do you see that possibility of them putting strategies in place?
That's what I'm saying. It's going to be impossible to determine whether or not they will come in and continue or do whatever they have promised. You understand? So we just have to hope and pray, because realistically there is no scientific means of determining the intents of their heart.
You still, I don't think you actually get, do you get the question I'm trying to ask? Like,
because Barrister Tosin, at the end of the day, in Lagos today, for example, during the Fashola administration, we saw a couple of initiatives, projects, and all of those take place. And when the current government came into power, people on the streets think that, well, there was no continuation, and it's almost like a counter activity, or there's the need to prove a point that we are different. And Felicity, I think what you're trying to say is that we need continuity at this point.
Especially for something like
so what sort of change in narrative would you be expecting from the next governor?
It's even unlikely that we'll see a continuation from either candidate.
You're just being skeptical.
My take is a little bit scholastic. Okay. On the other hand, you are talking about continuity, which is good, continuity of good things. But there's also need to respect the holder of the office of the governor or whichever office in terms of what he's bringing on board, innovation. So one party look, the only common denomination for leadership and public officers is what the Japanese call continuous improvement, Kaizen. If, for instance, Mr. A, Governor A, has faced corruption, and Mr. B, welcome Mr. B, enters Mr. B, and he decided to face, poverty. It's good. There's a nexus between both, so that it is specifically different from what the other man started. Would not be a crime. But then, continuity, like I said, that's why I said my
system,
contribution.
for example.
Pardon?
The busing system, public
the
transport.
The
buses,
okay.
yes, for example.
Yes. If Fashola didn't start bus system, I remember very well that it was towards the twilight days of Governor Asiwaju Tinubu, which he continued.
And somebody continued.
And continued.
That's exactly what we're talking about.
Now, we can continue from road transport as well to water transport. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Well, it's very possible.
Have respect for innovation. On the one hand, continuity is good, but one thing that is common to all kinds of government, good things, good thinking.
Well, it's been very, very interesting. We're hoping to have more time. The time never seems to be enough when the conversation is getting all warmed up. We will continue with the conversation. You're watching.
And we've been speaking with Olawale Amosa, right?
Yes.
The Young Progressive Party House of Assembly representative who is vying for that position come this election. And we also have Barrister Tosin Akande of Yes Electorate Solidarity Party. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much for coming.
Right here on Plus TV
But don't
Africa.
call us more parties anymore.
All right, we'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll continue with the conversation. Issues of ethnicity and religion have remained big. They are big matters that continue to shape the turn of events in the country. It is the effect of these two-headed dragon of ethnicity and religion. They are impediment to progress in Nigeria. We'll take a short break, and when we come back, we will continue with the analysis. Stay with us.